Right, hey everybody, I hope you're all doing great. I'm not too bad today. Let's see, I think the volume looks good, okay. Unity is up and ready to go. Alright, so yesterday, oh, that's right, we were working on selecting abilities, and I need to convert most of these old classes to use the new messages I created. So let's go ahead and start with that. Okay, so the problem last time was that this flow manager would just kind of start by itself whenever the choice phase was entered. But we actually want to wait until we get a command from the choice actions collector to start choosing. And the reason is because if the player is dead, then they don't have any actions to choose, and so I think it's better that we don't make the turn option flow have to worry about that kind of logic. Hey Storm, good to see you again. I'm doing great. How are you today? Alright, so let's see. So what is the message I need to subscribe to? Right here, I think. Sorry, Ricardo. I'm glad you're doing good. Okay, so we can say subscribe to message. It's an integer. And now we need to give it a callback. Alright, so let's say on start command. Okay, Ricardo, thank you. Okay, so first thing we need to do here is make sure this player is actually the local player, because that's the only one that we will control. And I forget, where are all the... oh, it's in the battle, isn't it? So we get component, or controller get component. Can I show the progress? Sure. I think it will still run. Actually, now it might not let us choose anything, but because we're in the middle of editing. But yeah, still the game loads everything and starts up. But yeah, we can't actually... oh no, it still does let us go, okay. I wasn't sure how far along I had gotten into changing all the code up. But pretty soon we're going to make this more sophisticated, well, where you'll need to first select a monster and then a list of abilities will pop up. And you'll pick that and then you'll need to pick a target. So that's what I'm working on right now. Alright, so if battle players player index. Yeah, so if the type is local, that means this is the one that we are looking for. So now we can activate. So selection phase. Oops, need a capital there. Okay, so first is to choose monster. So that's all this code will do, because something else will activate once this value is set. Instead of a gray capsule, we need some kind of Godzilla type. Yeah, that would probably be good. Yeah, the game is... I'm envisioning some kind of like the theme of this game will be like you capture like Godzilla type monsters, so it's kind of going to be on that scale. Does it need a gun or a sword? Not really. I don't think Godzilla would attack with that kind of thing. Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about the gameplay yet. We haven't designed that yet. So let's see. Okay, so now let's do the same thing on the AI manager. So again, I can just copy this. Player index. Okay, and also, so we'll want to move this code out. So let's see. Really, all we need to do now is if the specific player is an AI. Let's see. So player equals battle players player index. Okay, so we don't need to worry about if it's alive or not, because this wouldn't have been sent otherwise. So the gold capsule? I don't know, what's something that would be fitting to fight Godzilla? Maybe, actually I haven't seen the movies in a long time, but I don't know, maybe a giant robot? That'd be kind of cool. So, and then here, all that happens if we exit the option phase and we need to cancel whatever we're doing. So we actually get rid of that. Equals waiting players count greater than 0. So if we have any waiting players, we'll set this to active, which will force this function to be called every frame. The robot first because it's easier. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks again for offering to make some little temporary models. I do appreciate it. Not so many round services. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so let's see what happens here. Okay, so yeah, this is a selection phase. Okay, I might need to change this. So I guess this hijack thing should actually or maybe this shouldn't even really be an opposite, in a separate class. The selection flow manager can just set that. Okay, so let's see. Have the scope. Guess I should change this to selection scope. Now let's change the file. Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it, Ricardo. If you do something good or not, it does. Like I said, anything will be better than the current little capsules I have. Alright, so the reason I got that. Okay, so now I need to grab this from the components. And right here we should set the player. And then also clear everything else. This will be null for now, I think. Okay, so maybe instead of, like, we can maybe accept this for other players as well. Let's see. Okay, so private pool should control player. And this will basically be, let's do it this way, player equals paddle player index, and then if player type is local, then we'll return true. So I guess I should do this as a switch statement. I always put the colon in the wrong spot. And then if it's a local AI, we will only control this if the AI script is -1. And then anything else, we won't control this player. Okay, and so at this point, if we should control the player, we'll first add it to the list. Well, actually, maybe. So if scope player is less than 0, let's not do that. Do I want that? Well, if I want it to be really secure, I should make it so that only the flow manager can set this player. And if that's the case, then don't really need to have this in progress. So I'll just have to remember to do that. So set to -1 here. We'll just call this function right at the beginning, so we'll go ahead and cancel this out. Okay, so we know that if the scope is -1 right now, then nothing has started. I guess another way we could have done that is to see what the selection phase is, but so at this point we'll set a new player and also start choosing. Otherwise, we'll add this player to the waiting players list. Okay, and I already know that we're going to need to call this somewhere else, so let's go ahead and extract it. Start selecting with player. Maybe for player would make more sense. Okay, so at some point we'll get a command back letting us know that everything has been chosen, and then we can take care of the next player in the list. So that way we don't need to have that hijack command. So I'll go ahead and delete it. So basically this AI manager won't do anything for now, but that's okay. Okay, so private bool should control player. And this will be basically the opposite of the selection manager. Oops. I'm going to copy this. So if it's a local AI, we'll control this if it has greater than equal AI script index. Otherwise it's false. Alright, so Okay, and the waiting player is here. We'll always just add it to the list. And basically, okay, so yeah, we can basically just throw this exception all the time because we don't execute, or we haven't implemented any AI yet. But at least we have the code ready to do so. Okay, so I'll go ahead and add the selection flow manager to this class so it'll get started up. Okay, so now updated that. Okay, so now this turn option chooser is really out of date now. Because right now we kind of hacked it in so that we could just simply move monsters around. So I'm not even sure if I'll use this class. I might just mark it as obsolete and then just create new classes around it. We'll come back to it. Okay, so now let's see what happens if I just play. I'm trying to see that warning. Okay, so it says that the create save file. So that just means that nothing will ever call this. Is that correct? Yeah, there's a claim right here in the flow manager. Okay, well, oh, it's because, yeah, it's not claimed during the team build phase. Okay, well, I won't worry about that for now. But yeah, that's why this came up, I think. Okay, and then private field selection phase is assigned whenever used. Oh yeah, the AI manager shouldn't care about the selection phase because that is only for human players. Oh, okay. Got an error. Let's see what that is about. Interesting. What is going on here? So the server, some variable is being called a selection flow manager on choice phase change. Oh, okay. So the reason that's happening is because I called this function here and it tries to set the selection phase here, but at the constructor the claim to the variable hasn't been set yet or activated, so that's why I was throwing that error. So let's just extract this. Let's say clear scope. And I'll put it, yeah, right here is fine. And then I could just call clear scope right there instead of choice phase change. Alright, so now everything seems to be working, but of course we can't move anything anymore because the selection manager was deactivated. So player. Okay, so now some of these other things have gone unused now that I did not create the turn option chooser. That's just what these warnings are telling me about. That's okay. We'll come back. They'll of course be used once we replace it. Okay, so now let's make a new class. Select monster manager. And this will be the first phase of selecting an ability, where basically you'll just click on whatever monster you want to try to use an ability. Okay, let's clear out some of this stuff. Okay, and I actually think we might use some of this. So I think I'll copy and paste it and then just strip out the code I don't need anymore. Okay, I need to do that. Okay, so I'll rename this to selection phase, or to select phase. We don't need this anymore. And yeah, we don't need to print out when that changes. So I guess we still do need to know when the mouse button is pressed. On actions chosen, what is this? Oh, that's, we claim this message. So this wouldn't do anything, it'd actually be just we need to have another message, which is let's see, let me delete that just to clear out some things. I think now we're gonna get an error here, but I'll just change it to some other random. In fact, I'll just say 0. Okay, so this will actually, now we'll just say when we select a monster. And when could you select a monster? I suppose, well, when you click on one for sure, but also if you hovered over a monster maybe for a second or so, the game will just, I don't know what the right term is, but maybe soft select the monster, and then if you moved your mouse off of it, then it would automatically deselect it for you. That might be kind of nice. Maybe I am getting a bit ahead of myself thinking about that for now, but I think instead of actually passing the index of the monster, I'll just let this class set the monster in the scope, and then we'll just send a generic argumentless message back. So on select monster complete. So it's basically when we want the selection phase to go on to the next part. I guess complete is fine. Okay, we don't need this anymore. Okay, we still do need this mouse pick because it'll let us know if we're hovering over a monster or not. Can you give the robot a laser gun or a sword or knife? Oh yeah, whatever you want, Storm. Alright, so I don't need this. Oh. Okay, so we don't want to claim this anymore. We actually do want to subscribe. Why is it complaining? Oh, I need to do no argument listener. Oh, it needs a type. There we go. Okay, so if it's oh, hi Offie Gamer. Yeah, it has been a while. Thanks for stopping by again. I appreciate it. How have you been? Oh, very late, yeah. Yeah, actually this might be the first time since I had to change my streaming schedule. Okay, so why is this complaining to me? Oh, because this is a claim. Yeah, I don't need that anymore. You've been good? Okay, great to hear. Okay, so we don't need to do that anymore. Oh, Storm, I just said, yeah, you can do any kind of weapon you want. Alright, so before we had to worry about figuring out what player to start with, but we don't need to do that anymore because the flow manager does that for us. So I guess right here we would set, we don't even have a field for the monster. So yeah, just thinking here how I want to do this. Okay, I guess I should just add a field for monster in the action scope or selection scope. Oh, the chess game. Yeah, that was about a month ago I finished it, but yeah, it turned out pretty good, I think. I mean, it still needed a lot of work, but I wanted to move on to this, which is basically just a more complicated chess game. I think I have a link to it in my stream description if you want to check it out, like the actual code. Okay, so here we'd set the monster to -1. Because we could maybe check, like, has a monster been selected, or already, and then we could do some deselection animation or something, but worry about that later. What am I looking for? The flow controller. Right here. Yeah, on the clear scope I want to set the monster to -1. Well, thanks, Offie Gamer. Yeah, it just takes a lot of practice. And yeah, you gotta learn to try and stick to a project instead of... That's a trouble of mine, is I want to work on hundreds of things at once. Alright, so that's fine. We don't need this function at all anymore. Okay, so in here is where we see if we've selected a monster or not. Okay, so if we pick a block, then I guess we can check to see if a monster is standing on top of it. But yeah, we don't need any of this. And then we don't need this function at all either. Let's do the easy case first. So if a monster is actually selected... Oops, one too many curly brace right there. Let's create a helper function. Do I have a degree in computer science? Yes, I do. But I've been programming for about 8 years, I think. Yeah, computer science is not a bad field. That's for sure. Although, of course, I have to like games, and that's a slightly more difficult field to get into, but... yeah, it's always been my passion. Okay, so... I don't really need to check that. Guess it doesn't hurt, but... Really, we just want to call monster and then say that we're complete, or not say that we're done. Okay, so here, select monster, and we would just feed that in. Here it's slightly more difficult. Okay, so I think this will be easier to explain if I start the game up. Oop, but we have an error, of course. Okay. I forgot about this class. Do I want to change anything about it? Oh, well, no, I haven't forgot about it. Okay, so I guess I still do use this class to send the actions back up when we've chosen, but I'll just do that later. Alright, okay, it's happy now, so let's try it again. Okay, so basically what I want to do, we already know that selecting the capsule work, but then if I say clicked here, I'd kind of want it to select this monster. And in order to do that, I need to check basically if there's a monster standing on top of it. And right now how that works is I would just see if there's a monster in the hex above the one I clicked on. In the future, that won't really work because we might have flying monsters or monsters that climb. But I'll worry about that when the time comes. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so it just gives me the index of the block. So I want to get the actual hex position. Okay, Offie Gamer, thanks for coming by. I'm glad that you think it looks good. Hope to see you again a little sooner. But I understand it's pretty late, so I do appreciate you just coming by at all. So hex position, let's see. From map index, that's what we want. Oh, it doesn't like that. Oh, I need to pass the field. Uh, 2:15 a.m. Yeah, that's a bit late. All right, well, have a good night. Okay, and so hex pose above. It's basically the same, except it has the same column. Oops, not X. And row, and then the layer, we just add one to it. Yeah, thanks, Offie, I will. Well, I guess it technically is night for me. It's 8 p.m., so. Oh yeah, I forgot. It's very late for you as well, Storm. Seems I have a lot of Europeans that watch my stream. I'm surprised you guys can stay up so late. Okay, so I think this will work. Do I need to test anything? I guess I should check, is it valid? Maybe. Probably. Well, I guess this doesn't really matter right now. And then we'll just want to loop through each monster in the battle and see if it has the same position. Oh, except we actually, yeah, want to convert this back into an index. Yeah, block. Which I think I can call to field index. Okay, so if monster position, oh, I forgot to wrap it in an if statement. Above block field index. Then we know that this monster is in or standing on top of the block that was selected, so we can go ahead and select it. Ooh, except, yeah, I can't do a for each because I need to know this index right here, so rent m equals 0 and less than battle monsters count. Okay. I guess I can just say, well, I also should check if the monster is alive. That's what I should do here. monsters, monster index dot alive. Because if the monster is not alive, we obviously can't select it. So battle monsters m dot position. Then we'll select monster m. Okay. Alright, Ricardo, will do. I'll try to remember to log in more often. Okay, so are we all done here? Well, nothing actually responds to this. So basically, we need to subscribe to another message here. So sub to message. Oops. Come on, fingers are not playing nice with me tonight. But I guess what else is new? So monster select complete. So on monster selected. Okay, let's move this down. Okay, so I guess we should be safe and check to make sure we're still in the right phase. We don't really need to do choice phase. Let's do equals and selection phase, choose monster. Then we'll want to, we don't actually have to do anything here except advance the phase to choose ability. Okay, so I think that's really all we have to do here. Right now we don't do that fancy hover over monster to quote soft select it, but we can always add that in later. Alright, and now so where do I want to go? The play subphase over here. Play controller. So new select monster manager. Okay, so now this class will start up when we start the game. Okay, and so now we should get a message. We click. No, nothing happened, did it? So even when I selected the monster, it didn't do anything. Is the monster not alive? Let's check it out. So we can look in the battle. Oh no, both monsters are alive, so it should have let me select. Okay, maybe it's because neither player is active. Well, that's another thing I need to check actually. I need to make sure that the player actually owns this monster. Or do I? Because you could maybe select a monster that you don't own if you want to just look at its stats and things. Okay, yeah, I guess I'll wait to think about that. Yeah, that's just like, yeah, when you hover over a monster, you kind of want to bring up a little pop-up. That's something separate. But yeah, I guess you could select a monster you don't own, and it'll bring up a big window about it. I don't know, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just, right now, we'll make sure that you own the monster. No, don't need to have any other equality there. So if the monster is alive, and monster dot, oh, it doesn't have an owner. We need to make sure that this index is in that player's team. So that'll players scope dot player dot team contains monster index. Alright, Ricardo, just come whenever you can. It's no problem. So yeah, have a good night, and thanks for stopping by. I guess that doesn't really solve our problem of why we weren't getting... Because I was expecting when we selected the monster, this message would fire, which would cause this to change the choosability, and so we would get this debug message. So let's have our own little debug log right here. Attempt to choose monster, and we'll see what pops up. Oops. Okay, so when I click, nope, nothing even happens. Maybe this select button is never firing. Oh no, it's because the selection phase is wrong. It should be choose monster. Alright, so let's try this again. Okay, so now it works. But that's funny, it shouldn't have let me choose monster 1, I don't think. Okay, so I guess player 1 is active right now, that's kind of weird. Oh, I know why that is actually. And normally this won't matter, but it does right now. I'm not sure if I want to fix it or not, but it's because, let's see, we have to iterate backwards through here in case something gets removed from waiting players immediately. We could just make sure that nothing gets removed immediately. Obviously nothing would happen with the flow manager. Would the AI do it? No, because I think they wait until the next tick. Yeah, so I should know. Usually I always encounter bugs when I try to iterate backwards through something. should know better by now. Alright. Because I want player 0 to pick first, just because it feels better. I mean, in the real game, you'll never control 2 players at once, but while we're debugging, you will. Right. So that worked. Now I'm going to select the hex below the monster and see if that works. And it does. I guess I should select one adjacent to it just to make sure. Yeah, it doesn't do anything. Okay, and now it's selected. Alright. Okay, so one thing I want to do real quick is in this debug, I think it'd be really useful to also show the current selection scope. So let's add that. Let's see. Current selection scope. Alright, and will this, I forget, will it ever dispose? No, it doesn't. Okay. Oh, but I do need to set it to serialize these private fields. Turn options, I don't think we'll serialize, but let's do it in case. And then this has to be serializable. Because let's just see if it pops up here. There it goes. Yeah, so just the player and monster, but that's really all we need right now. Okay, so we can see now, well, for just a second, there was no player selected, but then it changed to 0 when we changed to the choice, choose monster phase. And now if I click, the monster will change to 0. Which is exactly what we expect. Okay, I have about 30 minutes, so I bet we can start something else. I'll leave that for now. Okay, so this is the kind of, well, the next thing obviously is to select an ability, and this will be, yeah, I think this part will take us quite a while because there's a few different aspects to it. Most obvious is an interface, so when we select a monster, some window will need to pop up. I'll probably just do a really easy one over in this corner that just has a bunch of buttons that I can click on one. So that's the first thing. Another part we have to do is we actually don't import abilities at all from mods yet, so we'll have to go through that whole thing, kind of like I did with monster stats the other day. And also we'll need to hook into Lua to see which abilities are available for use. So yeah, there's quite a few different aspects to this, but we'll just tackle them one at a time. Select ability. And I think I'll just copy this, the monster selection manager. We'll use that as a base. Alright, so how will it be different? Well, actually it'll be a lot more complicated, I think. Well, it won't need to have the mouse pick event at all. And we're going to be using Unity's interface code, so we won't need to watch for the mouse click separately. We'll still need to know what this select phase is. And then we'll need our own little message here. So on ability chosen. So let's create another message here. Alright, so on choose ability. Okay, so let's make another field here. Serialized field. Oh yeah, and if you don't know what the serialized field is, this song's a bit loud. Basically, you want to try and keep these fields private just for good programming rules, or good programming, I'm trying to think of the right word, good programming ideas to follow. And but if you have a private field, Unity won't serialize it, which means it won't show up in Unity's inspector right here. Like we can see, there's no ability now, even though I just added it. Oh, I just had to recompile, but if I took this away, it wouldn't show up. I guess I'll show you. Alright, come on Unity. Right, there we go. So yeah, after it recompiled, the ability field does not show up in the editor, even though it's still in the code. So by using this, you get to have best practices by keeping the fields private and still have them show up in Unity, so it's kind of like eat your cake and have it too. Okay, so here, while I'm here, I'm going to set everything to -1 in the constructor. It just seems like a good idea. And then in the flow manager, I'll also set it to -1 when we clear the ability. Oh, except I didn't create an accessor. Alright, there we go. And then on the ability manager right here, we'll also set it to -1 when we re-enter the choose ability. And here we'd also build a list, or somehow we'll create the ability interface. We'll need to think about that. This will actually be our first time to use the GUI in this project. Well, we have this small little button, but okay, so I'll delete these for now. Don't need that. We probably will use the battle, but I think it will complain to me if I keep it in right now. And we'll also complain about this because it's not being used, but that's okay. I guess so I remember. We can go ahead and create the flow controller's response to selecting an ability. We also will need like ability selection cancel go back to monster selection. If you choose an ability, then you go on to choose actions. Maybe, because some abilities might only have one action. But we'll take care of that when we get there. Okay, so let's go ahead. Unselect ability cancelled. Oops, cancelled. And it's basically the same, except instead of moving on to choose actions, it's choose monsters again. Alright, so now we go ahead and support that. Could have a whole nother class that takes care of canceling, because it's probably just going to be pressing escape, but I guess we could go ahead and take care of that now. I don't think we have an escape button, so this will be, I guess I'll just call it the back button. So we'll just create another component here. And what key? I guess the escape key makes the most sense. Maybe backspace. You can do both, actually. Good key. Key codes. Backspace. Yeah, that should be okay. Alright, so now all I need to do, let's say controller, subscribe to variable. Alright, so check Blizzard Tamer tag. Let's see, back button. And then we'll use this trigger listener, which is just a special listener for Boolean variables that only fires when the Boolean changes to true. Back button pressed. Now we want to make sure we're in the right phase before we do anything else. And then we'll just call on cancel. Alright, so that should be it. Let's go ahead and add this ability selector. And we can test out canceling. So first I'll select this, and so now monster 0 is selected, and if I press escape it should, yeah, switches back, and now no monster is selected. Yeah, it should still work. And then I'll try backspace. Yeah, all good. Alright, so let's see here. So I need to make a list of abilities that the monster can use. But I guess really the first thing I have to do is actually create some ability data. I think I have something here, but it's just empty. And this monster, it doesn't even have a list of abilities anymore. Okay, so let's just start off with just a name. And then a monster should have a list of abilities. Okay, and so one of the interesting things about Pokemon, and also be the same for this game, is that you don't really know what abilities a monster has because the player gets to choose, obviously, which abilities the monster brings with it into battle. So I think how we'll model this is that this list might be empty for monsters that aren't in your team, but that won't really cause a problem. Maybe we'll fill this up when we know that a monster has certain abilities. And actually, yeah, this shouldn't be a list of abilities by itself. It actually should be a list of indexes, and then the game data will have all the different abilities with their names and such. So let's add that here. I don't think we really need to have like a separate ability prototype class because abilities they don't change. So I think this should be okay. Alright, and of course we'll just start with just a name. Right, so the loading class and the asset organizer is what inserts everything into the game data. So for now, okay, we clear the prototypes. I guess we need to load up abilities before monsters because we have to know all the ability indexes before we can create the ability list in the monsters. So we'll do it here. Ability is clear. We'll just clear the array just to be safe. Okay, so we'll basically need another map like this. Okay, I want to try and keep the architecture here about the same, so I'll move that there. But there's no default ability that we need to add. So this will be add abilities, so the framework mod, and then we'll pass it the ability map. And then this will go down here. And it's not implemented right now, so we'll leave that. Okay, so now we need to make the the ability blueprint class, which I guess can just be ability. And this is in the Tactical Lizard Tamer mod namespace, which are all classes that mod authors will be able to use. Right, and this should be serializable. And basically, just like these other classes, they'll be read in as XML files. I don't know why that was like that. Okay, so let's clear out some of these files. So right now I'll just have a name. Let's go ahead and have a display name, I guess. Well, we will need a display name eventually, but if I want to have any kind of localization abilities, it'll be a little more complicated than just having one separate string. So I'll wait. Localization is another thing you need to try to add in right away because it can be difficult to add in later in a project. So we might actually do that sooner than later. Alright, so what else do I need to do? Oh, I need to add another array in the table of contents, which will give us all ability files. And then we need to load that up in the mod load manager, I think. It'll basically work the same as these prototypes. So if table contents abilities does not equal null, so we load the XML file and it needs the mod name, mod folder path, the path to it in the table of contents, the type, okay, and then an exception name. So let's name it ability 0. Alright, and then it returns the name in the database. So if the XML object is already loaded, okay, so we should ability file. Otherwise we want to wait. Okay, so do I need to make another list, I guess? Oops, don't need that extra M. Okay, do I want to have separate lists for all these? The abilities might be the last one. Anteza, can I show the game for now? I think so. Let me see if it will run. I actually think it might run into an error now, but let's see. Maybe it'll be happy if I just comment this out. Okay, it does go all the way through. So yeah, it's not super impressive right now because we're still in the middle of working on it. Earlier you could actually move these little monsters around on the map, but we're working on making better ability selection, so it's a work in progress. So let's see. Oh, I guess it's just cleaner to have them all separate. Well, cleaner in one way. Yeah, the game is definitely now loading. Alright, so waiting ability XML. what's this? Okay. I actually think I don't need to do that anymore. I'll leave that comment there in case. And then up here, so check waiting XML and load ability file. Okay, well that's nice that I can just use that function. I think this actually generates quite a bit of garbage, but who really cares in the loading phase? Right, and so I can actually probably copy this. I should move these down. I guess that doesn't make much difference. Okay, so anyway, loading assets from ability. So we don't actually have to load anything really, because here everything has a model. But I guess we should still make sure that the ability isn't null. So right now the ability only has a name, so expected ability and asset. Okay, so that's fine. Alright, so now back here, okay, so I'll copy this. Oops, need another curly brace. Okay, so change that to mod. So in the mod table of contents, if there's no abilities, then we'll just exit now. What else should I copy from here? So basically this whole part. So first it creates the key for the XML, and then it gets the ability from the loaded assets. Data and mod data, and so if it's null, then we basically throw the same exception as before. I guess I don't need to do that, do I? I can just assume it's there because otherwise it would have been caught before. Is there any way it couldn't have been caught? I don't think so, but I guess it's safer to have it just in case, because I don't want the game to ever crash during the loading scene. Alright, so anyway, logic data, which is just the actual game's data. Okay, so now it makes sure that the mod name, or the name of the ability in the mod data isn't null. So let's see. And then it makes sure there's not an ability with the name already. The wording here is a little confusing. Has duplicate name. I think that's better. Yeah, because you could read that either as the prototype here has a name that's already been taken, or the prototype here already took that name. So yeah, this is clear. And then we just set the name into the name map. And then we add the data to the abilities. Okay. So I think it's good. Let's make sure the game runs now. Alright, got 5 minutes. I hope we can create an ability file in the time. Okay, so everything's still fine. Alright, so let's create an ability file. Let's open. Where's some streaming assets right here? Okay, so let's just make, I don't know, move ability. Let's keep with the naming convention and put the type first. Okay, so obviously nothing's in it, but we can copy this monster prototype just to get the format for XML, and then we'll change this to ability. It doesn't have stat, it only has the name, so let's just call it move. And now we need to add that to the table of contents. So abilities, so can I spell it? And string. Okay, so it's ability move. Alright, so now it should load that up. Hopefully no errors. And we can make sure everything's good by looking at the data. Okay, so it doesn't show abilities. Maybe I didn't serialize it. Oh yeah, so I just need to type serializable here. And since this is public, Unity will serialize this field. We can wait a sec and abilities should pop up right here. There we go. And there should be one with move. And so now we know the game actually does load an ability file. Alright, so I guess that's probably a good place to stop. So tomorrow I'll start working on the interface window right here, and I'll have this a button for every ability. And then we'll be able to press the button and move on to selecting the ability target. That phase will be pretty fun as well because we'll have to get a Lua script which will give us basically all the actions that that ability would take, and then we'll be able to select an end point. It'll be kind of like a lot like when we did for the chess game, except a bit more complicated because there'll be a lot more actions than just moving and capturing. But we'll take it one step at a time. Alright, but yeah, everybody, thanks for stopping by and watching the stream. We'll continue at 8 Eastern tomorrow, and yeah, we'll work on more selections. Alright, hope to see you then. Oh, if you did miss part of the stream and you want to catch up, I will upload this to YouTube. You can check out my channel in the my Twitch description below. And anyway, I hope to see you tomorrow. Thanks again. Bye-bye.